استغلال هو مواجهة كل أنواع التطرف.
Good afternoon, you're watching the English newscast on Future Television. I'm Linda Tamim and these are today's top stories. The families of the Lebanese servicemen being held hostage by jihadis say they have not yet received any assurances from authorities in recent days that negotiations with the captors are moving forward. U.S. President Barack Obama issues an executive order declaring Venezuela a national security threat and places sanctions on 7 officials. And French sports stars, including an Olympic champion swimmer and one of the world's best sailors, are among 10 killed in a helicopter crash in Argentina. The families of the Lebanese servicemen being held hostage by jihadis say they have not yet received any assurances from authorities in recent days that negotiations with the captors are moving forward. The families held a meeting with Health Minister Wael Abu Faour, who is tasked with briefing the families on developments in the case. They called on Prime Minister Tamam Salam, Progressive Socialist Party leader Walid Jumblat, and Parliament Speaker Nabih Berri to speed up the progress in the file because they are growing impatient. They also expressed optimism about the current Qatari mediator carrying out the negotiations, describing him as stronger than his predecessors. Progressive Socialist Party leader Walid Jumblat confirmed he will hand over his seat in Parliament to his eldest son Taimour. In remarks published in a Safir Daily, Jumblat said Parliament Speaker Nabih Berri has promised he will hold by-elections in May after the Druze leader submits a letter of resignation to Parliament. Jumblat says by-elections will take place in Chouf and Jazin to fill the seat of the late MP Michel Helou and possibly in Zgharta if Marada movement leader Sleiman Frangieh decides to hand over the post to his son Tony. The Druze leader also said he will give his testimony before the Special Tribunal for Lebanon in June, but he will avoid a protracted testimony. The Safir says Jumblat appears resolute in maintaining his dissociation policy toward the March 14 coalition, saying the Future Movement-led alliance has no strategy. Now for some news in Latin America, the United States' new sanction on Venezuela was a hot topic at a press conference held by Venezuelan Foreign Affairs Minister Delcy Rodriguez. It came after U.S. President Barack Obama signed an executive order imposing additional sanctions on 7 current and former Venezuelan officials over alleged human rights abuses and corruption. Here are the developments.
U.S. President Barack Obama has issued an executive order declaring Venezuela a national security threat and placed sanctions on 7 officials. The White House says the new set of targeted sanctions excludes the Venezuelan people and any trade relations with the nation, and are instead specifically aimed at government officials the U.S. accuses of violating human rights.
The executive order was related to 7 individuals, so certainly against them there would be. And as you know, in the past, we also announced visa bans against a number, I think it was more than 50 individuals, although we don't release those names because of privacy reasons. So there are certainly restrictions against individuals. Separately, we also put out last week some information about what will be required to travel to Venezuela in terms of visas, given the restrictions put in place. So there's a couple of things happening at once. Clearly, we've also seen a pattern over the past several months of President Maduro accusing the United States of being involved in transgressions that we have no involvement in, that are frankly outrageous and distract from the problems they have in their own country. So in that regard, certainly we've been dealing with an uptick in that in recent months.
Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro responded by saying the U.S. measures were intended to topple his socialist government. In Monday's statement, the White House called on Venezuela to release all political prisoners, including dozens of students, and warned against blaming the U.S. for its problems. The White House said the executive order targeted people whose actions undermined democratic processes or institutions, had committed acts of violence or abuse of human rights, were involved in prohibiting or penalizing freedom of expression, or were government officials involved in public corruption. The new sanctions were the 3rd set imposed on Venezuelans since December. The 7 individuals named in the order would have their property and interest in the U.S. blocked or frozen, and they would be denied entry into the U.S. American citizens would also be prohibited from doing business with them. The latest U.S. actions mark another downturn in relations between the U.S. and Venezuela. Just last week, Maduro announced measures to limit the number of U.S. diplomats in Venezuela, reducing a staff of nearly 100 to just 17 individuals. In addition to reducing embassy staff, Venezuela is now requiring U.S. citizens to have a visa before entering the country. The two countries have not had full diplomatic representation since 2008, when late socialist leader Hugo Chavez expelled then U.S. Ambassador Patrick Dutty.
French sports stars, including an Olympic champion swimmer and one of the world's best sailors, were among 10 killed in a helicopter crash while filming a reality TV show in Argentina. Champion sailor Florence Artaud, Olympic gold medalist swimmer Camille Muffat, Olympic boxer Alexis Vastine, and 7 others died when 2 helicopters filming the survival series smashed into each other in the rugged mountains of La Rioja province. The cause of the crash remains unknown. Diplomats say 8 member countries of the UN Security Council have put a hold on Libya's request for dozens of fighter jets, tanks and other weapons. The country says it urgently seeks to defend itself against the rising threat of ISIS. Libya last week appealed to the 15-member council to lift or loosen a UN arms embargo on the oil-rich North African country, which has fractured into several militia groups and 2 rival governments. Council members, including the United States and Britain and a UN panel of experts, worry that weapons given to Libya's Western-backed government risk falling into the wrong hands. British Foreign Secretary Philip Hammond says Russia could once again pose the greatest threat to Britain's security. Speaking in London, he said the country's spy agencies were stepping up efforts to counter this.
We are now faced with a Russian leader bent not on joining the international rules-based system, which keeps the peace between nations, but on subverting it. President Putin's actions, illegally annexing Crimea and using Russian troops to destabilize eastern Ukraine, fundamentally undermine the security of the sovereign nations of Eastern Europe. The rapid pace with which Russia is seeking to modernize her military forces and weapons, combined with the increasingly aggressive stance of the Russian military, including Russian aircraft around the sovereign airspace of NATO member states, are all significant causes for concern. So we're in familiar territory for anyone over the age of about 50, with Russia's aggressive behavior a stark reminder that it has the potential to pose the single greatest threat to our security, and hence continuing to gather intelligence on Russia's capabilities and intentions will remain a vital part of our intelligence effort for the foreseeable future. It is no coincidence that all of our agencies are recruiting Russian speakers again.
A court in Ivory Coast has found former First Lady Simone Gbagbo guilty of charges related to her role in a 2011 post-election crisis in which around 3,000 people were killed, sentencing her to 20 years in prison. Gbagbo, who is also wanted by the International Criminal Court for alleged crimes against humanity, was accused of crimes including undermining state security, xenophobia, and forming armed militias. She was tried along with 82 other allies of ex-president Laurent Gbagbo. Former U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton has warned there is still a long way to go to reach gender equality. Mrs. Clinton was speaking at an event marking the release of the No Ceilings Full Participation Report, which used data collected by the Bill, Hillary and Chelsea Clinton Foundation and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in hopes of accelerating the pace of change for women and girls.
So this isn't just a story about women and girls. It is a universal story about the kind of world we want for our children and grandchildren. The good news, based on 20 years of data from more than 190 countries collected by the Clinton Foundation and the Gates Foundation through the No Ceilings Project, is that there has never been a better time in history to be born female. You know, the gains that Chelsea and Melinda spoke about show that progress is possible. But that's just part of the story. The data also shows how far we still have to go. And women are still highly vulnerable to sexual and gender-based violence, especially in conflict zones. And we don't have enough women in the ranks of the peacekeepers. So we've got a long way to go to get to this goal of integration into the daily work of security and peace building.
Well, speaking of sexual violence against women, a documentary banned by the Indian government has received its U.S. premiere at a star-studded New York event. Monday's screening of India's Daughter at Baruch College started with a candlelight vigil honoring Jyoti Singh, the medical student who died after being gang-raped on a bus in 2012. Award-winning actress Meryl Streep told a packed auditorium that Singh was not only India's daughter. The documentary was directed by British filmmaker Leslie Udwin, herself a rape victim. The uproar focuses on comments by one of the 6 rapists interviewed for the film, who blamed the victim for taking a bus late in the evening. India's Daughter was first shown in the UK's BBC last week.
This is not just an India problem. This is a problem that inflicts almost every country in the world. There is not a single country in 2015 that is free of sexual violence against women, and hence this is a very important cause for me to take on. You know, that is very unfortunate because this film in no way is propagating violence in order to solve the problem. In fact, what we're saying is let's do this in the most civilized possible way ever, which is through education, which is to get governments of the world, government of India to come on board to figure out a way through gender sensitization to solve this problem, because it's really, it stems from a mindset. Violence is not gonna really cure this issue, cure this problem.
This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our top stories. The families of the Lebanese servicemen being held hostage by jihadis say they have not yet received any assurances from authorities in recent days that negotiations with the captors are moving forward. U.S. President Barack Obama issues an executive order declaring Venezuela as a national security threat and places sanctions on 7 officials. And French sports stars, including an Olympic champion swimmer and one of the world's best sailors, are among 10 killed in a helicopter crash in Argentina. Those are your top stories for today. I'm Linda Tamim, and I'll see you again tomorrow for more updates. Take care.